everybody. Whatever time it is, wherever you are, while you're watching this, I hope it is a lovely day. And it seems like a good start to our session with all the niceties when we're going down that rabbit hole of the office. I can't say that. You know what I really want to say, right? You know, this is a great session. We're gonna do it in good taste, and we'll say office jerk. How about that? Like a work jerk. So what I want to talk to you about today is what do you think about when you hear this term? What happens when we have people that we're in constant conflict with at our office? What happens when there is a lot of pushback or avoidance from our teammates? And we're not even in the office as much anymore, right? Where some of us aren't in the office at all or haven't been for some time, but we still have to work with everybody. So when you think about office jerk, you're thinking, well, I don't have any problems with anyone, and that's great. But I want to take a chance to say, maybe we can take a look at ourselves just a little bit closer and see how our interactions and conflicts in our office, what we might have a role in that. How do we figure out what exactly the problem is, and how do we separate emotion from fact? How do we not only sort that out, but figure out how do I know if I'm the problem? How will I know if I'm the problem? I might not, right? I might not know if I'm the problem. So what can you do to look at what the problem might be? And can you sort that out? And there are some ways to approach that that'll help us figure out if there is a method for us to figure out, what if I am the problem? What if I'm the problem? What if I'm the problem in the office and I never realized it? What can I do once it happens? Is it repairable? Is it something that I can fix? What steps can I take to fix it? What can I do to rebuild that respect and trust from my colleagues that I may not have, I may have lost? And what if I can't regain that respect and trust? And while we're doing this, we're going to look at some humorous stories. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own foibles in the workplace. But first off, let's go to the fun part. How do you define jerk? Take a look at this. I love Ted Goff. Now, I don't get any money from him. I don't own stock in his business. What I can tell you is that Ted is one of the best in the business when it comes to doing business cartoons, and you can go out onto his site. You can buy them to use for presentations, which I did today, and he's just really understands the whole insanity of office life. If you've ever watched Office Space, the movie, or you've ever watched the TV show The Office, even the British version or the US version, you know what an office jerk is like. Dwight Schrute would be considered probably an office jerk at Dunder Mifflin, right? If you think about that. So how do you define jerk? Is it somebody that constantly points fingers, never takes responsibility, is always telling somebody, oh, there must have been some sort of miscommunication when there's a project due? These conflicts that come up, when you come up to a conflict with your supervisor, maybe you think your supervisor is a jerk. It's because they don't communicate well with you. They don't tell you things before you need to know them, or they tell you after the fact, or even worse, they decide to throw you under the bus in front of all your colleagues on a call, right? We're all on Zoom now. For a lot of parts, people are on some sort of video platform, whether it's Teams or Zoom. And I think a majority of offices are requiring video on. So being able to keep that, that smiling face, and I'm so interested in everything that's going on when I really just want to reach through the screen and punch you. Like, that's, how do you define jerk? will tell you one of my experiences with a jerk. I'd started at a large company, a team of about 30 EAs. I was brand new. It was a huge, humongous complex. It was really, kind of a traditional gopher cubicles throughout the building, and then the bosses, or the cheeses as I like to call them, had their own little office. They could actually shut a door where the rest of us were all out in cubicles. And on my first day there, after I get all my sign and login and everything, and I brought over to my desk where I'm going to be working, and I have a colleague to the left of me in another cubicle just across the entryway. These are nice desks, nice cubicles, beautiful office space, really, cush, in my opinion. And this gal is there, and I'm like, hey, I'm generally a friendly person to start with most of the time, and I could see, even though she had a certain team up on her wall that I don't really care for, I was gonna yeah, whatever. At least she likes sports, because I love sports. And I said to her, hey, could you tell me where the coffee is? I need to make some coffee. And she said to me, I don't drink coffee. That wasn't the point. Your colleague, right? Wouldn't you, let me show you where the coffee is, or this is how you make it, or any of those things? She's like, I don't drink coffee. So just rude, right? So that's a form of being a jerk. And speaking of coffee, let's try something new. Check this out. If you've ever had to deal with a jerk, maybe this is how you'd like to deal with a work jerk.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, buddy.
You know you can't bring that weak ass stuff up in this Humpty Bumpy. You killed a joke. You made some more.
Right? Violence is not funny, but I mean, if you've ever felt this way inside when you've been in an office kitchen and there's no coffee, and you know that the person just walked out took the last of it, or the person who used the last of the paper in the copier and they didn't fill it, who was supposed to set up the office conference room and didn't. These are little petty things, right? These are small things, but they add up over time, and frustrations really come to the forefront when you're dealing with an office jerk. It tags our very emotions, and that brings us to dealing with, how do you separate emotion from fact? So think about the feelings that come up when you have a conflict of any kind while you're at work, whether it is online or face-to-face or over the phone, when you're dealing with a colleague or a supervisor or a whole team, and you feel frustration. And maybe you're just tired of it, right? This is exhausting. Or maybe you feel completely disrespected. These people have no idea. They don't care about my time. Maybe they constantly interrupt you, or the real fun one, or you're unappreciated. You go above and beyond, and you don't get a thank you. And maybe you don't need a thank you every time, but every once in a while it'd be nice. Or one of my all-time favorites, and I confess right here, I used to be guilty of this, and I have, through kind of this experience in my workplace, working as long as I have, and learning these conflict approaches, I've learned to be better about it and try not to do this. So how about the person who you have given OneNote procedure manual to, gone over it with them, really, reviewed it with them several times, and yet they come back to you and say, I don't have time for this. Can you just do it for me? Not the colleague that says, I am slammed, and you know they're slammed, and you know they're not lying, and they're not being lazy. They just don't know how to do something, or they don't have time, and they say, hey, can you do this? We're talking about the person who does know how to do it, who just doesn't want to, right? They're being kind of petulant about it. And that can make us feel very put upon, you know, and when we feel put upon, anybody who feels put upon on a regular basis is going to get frustrated and angry. They're human. We're human beings. And so then you have that resentment. Like, I know they're getting paid more than I am. I know they just take off time whenever they want to. You know, all those things that you may or may not feel. Now, mind you, you may not feel any of these feelings because you're more mature than most of us. But you might, or you might catch yourself feeling these things every once in a while. If you get to the point of whatever, like whatever, I am so done. Those are all emotions we feel during conflict. Sometimes we feel even more different, like disappointment or anxious or perhaps even sad. All those feelings, they're emotions. But when we take the emotions out of the equation, we need to look at what are the facts. When we're having a review with our colleagues or our supervisor, take a deep breath. What is the real issue? So we're back to the point of, are you an office jerk? And what is the real problem? What is the issue? And if you find yourself in consistent conflict with people, I really encourage you to look at these facts, these pieces that are not related to how you feel about them. The first part being quality issues. Has the person or team or supervisor come to you with some discussions about your quality issues? Now, I think early on in our work, we have a lot of issues with perhaps rushing through to finish something, or maybe we're not proofreading it quickly enough, or we've grabbed the wrong company template, or any number of these things quality-wise that we know are important to our team and to our company and to our supervisor, and most of all looks best outside to our clients. So quality issue, are they coming to you with a quality issue? Is that what they're talking about? The second thing, timely delivery. Are you waiting to the last minute to do something? Are you right up against the end of it and then you realize there's a problem and you've got to do it over? Just happened with this very session while I was recording it. I recorded it on Zoom. I went back, I looked at it, and there was some really funky stuff going on, and it was due today. And I was like, I have to re-record this. It's still on time, but I'm cutting it pretty close. But if it's a consistent issue, again, what is the person bringing to your attention? Punctuality. This is huge. I think it doesn't get enough heft or enough understanding of the importance of it in the workforce. It's not talking about, being on time doesn't mean showing up right when the phones go live or when you need to be right on. Generally, the expression is, if you're on time, you're late. You want to get on ahead of time. You want to be there present before things start. You want to have your head focused. And are you consistently on time? Are you on time for meetings? Are you on time for Zoom calls or team calls? That is important. And if that's something that's been brought up to you, you're going to know that they're going to comment on it. They're going to say, this is like the third time you've been late this week. No, there's always the phrase that somebody says, if you're late for work a lot, a great deal, frequently, that you really just don't want to be there. It could be true, right? Maybe you don't want to be there. But the fact is these things on the right side that we have here are our skills, our things we're being evaluated on. Listening. Yeah, listening. That phrase that we're so busy waiting to get to our answer and delivery that we're not listening to what the person is actually asking for. It's not always clear. And listening requires, and it kind of goes down to that last point of communications, listening and repeating back, asking questions. I did not think to ask questions a lot when I was early in my career. I didn't ask enough questions. Skills needed. Are they coming to you with an area that you need to work on technically? Or even soft skill. It could be soft skill, like your tone of voice, your demeanor, your patience level. It could be that kind of skill. But what if it's a skill that you have been said you need to work on, how comfortable you are with Excel formulas, or you need to work on better organization or time management, or you need to really understand how to deal with teams. Maybe you need a lot of work with teams and channels. Those things are skills, and if they've come to you with them and said, you really need to get a better handle on this, that's a skill that you can, in fact, work on. But you have to work on it. Communications is probably the biggest challenge we find with all conflict in the office. And it's threefold. That's right. Communications are threefold. Of course, the listening part. The detaching of emotion from it, like taking out emotion. So based on tone and approach of conversation. So if somebody comes at you hot, it's pretty challenging not to react. And if they come at you hot a lot, that's another issue. But what if you're the person who gets hot every time somebody brings something to your attention? What if you're that person who gets angry, or frustrated, or apathetic? What if the communication isn't clear? So text communication is really challenging. Why? Because it can be misconstrued. So if you're in a meeting and you pick up a text and you look at it, and it's about a project that you're working on, it's very hard to convey in a text if something is urgent, unless people put it in all caps, or if it's something that you need to ask more questions. Do you have time to do that on a text? Well, it's easier just to pick up the phone and call someone. It used to be said, and who knows when we'll get back there, that when there's a communication challenge, if there's somebody in your team that you're having a communication challenge with, the best approach is to go see them face to face if they're in your building, if you can do that. Now you can do video call. So the importance of the video is that you can read facial, that method of reading facial expression. You can tell that unexpressed emotion when somebody is rolling their eyes, or not paying attention. You can tell that now on video. You can't tell that necessarily on a phone call. Somebody could just have, the mute going and they're typing still. They could probably still do that on Zoom call, but it's a lot easier to tell that they're not really paying attention to the communication. So emotion versus fact. This is the first way that we can start to look at what is the problem and where is the problem. So we have emotions, we're human. Then the next part is quality, and these facts here on the side. You've looked at these things, and all of a sudden, you're looking at the way that you're dealing with people. And maybe you're starting to see that more times than not, you are the problem. And how would we know that? So let's go back for a second to the previous slide. Okay, we're not going to go back to the previous slide. How about that? Think about those lists that I just gave you, and we're going to go to that first handout in the materials, because this is going to come to our approach. How are we going to figure out what the issue is? We're going to have 3 approaches. Why are we the way that we are? You're starting to think honestly and earnestly about your role in office conflict. And you know in your heart, you know for real in your being, when people are avoiding you, when people are not starting to give you assignments, when you start to hear scuttle that other people are being given your work because you're not getting in on time, or whatever the issue might be. So the question becomes, maybe I am a problem sometimes. Maybe I am the problem sometimes. And we want to say to ourselves, how do we become part of the solution and not part of the problem? How are we going to get there? How is that going to happen? And there are 3 approaches that we could talk about that gets us there. First, before we go to any of these things, you have to want to change. Now, if you don't want to change, this session is probably not for you, but I figure if you're on Executive Secretary Live Global, you're already committed to improvement. So join in with me on this one. Go back to your last review. So do an annual review. Look at what were the things that were pointed out that were areas that needed improvement. What were areas that needed improvement? And so suppose you got just like the most stellar, amazing annual review. Good for you. But in your heart, you know, there are some areas that you wish you were just a little more comfortable with or better at, or something that you admire in another colleague that you want to learn how they do that. That's one way of looking at it. So do yourself an annual review first to see, take the first approach to resolving if you are the problem or you are the solution. Because the first step is to address the problem. And if the problem is a specific skill set or something that your company is pointing out to you, then heed that. That's not a joke. That's like a flag, or what they call a shot across the bow, right? And you need to take that to heed and work on it. The second one is this is something that requires commitment. You want to track yourself. So on the little form that I have here in the handout, you're going to look at tracking yourself for 15 days. If there's somebody that you already know you have a constant conflict with, I encourage you to just put their name right in, or not their name, or their initials, or their project, or the team, whatever the issue is where you have the most. Let's just deal with one, right? Let's just take one conflict. And let's look at our role in it. So you're going to see if it's something that you can track that person. We're going to rate it on a scale of a good interaction is a 10 and a bad interaction is a 1. And you're going to put on there where that interaction ranked and the emotion that came to you when you first had that conflict. Were you resentful? Were you annoyed? Were you angry? Were you self-righteous? Like, I know I'm right on this. It's emotions, and it's okay, right? Because we're human. I just want to reiterate that. And then see how often that emotion or that issue is recurring within those 15 days. Now, if you're having so many conflicts that you can't write them all down, you might need therapy. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding, but maybe, I don't know. Think about it though. Track yourself, track your interactions with your colleagues, track where those frustration spots hit. Is it a skill? You're gonna know right away, like I'm not a big fan of Teams. I'm sorry. And I know why I'm not a big fan of Teams. It's because I don't work in it enough to be comfortable with it. That requires a level of honesty and maturity that I didn't always have. So just track yourself. Now, the third piece, super, super valuable, but it must be done carefully. Safe zone feedback. What is safe zone feedback? Safe zone feedback means that you are going to somebody who knows your work, preferably somebody that you work with that you have a stellar respect and trust bond with, that you know will not share the conversation with anyone else, will not can be an objective observer of your question and honest, provide you a truth speaker, will tell you what you don't want to hear. Ayana Castro, who is also another presenter, I think, at Live this go round, talks a lot about your board of directors. And your board of directors are people who support you as friends, as colleagues, and they support you in the journey of life. And they will tell you point blank, these are people that you want to use your safe zone feedback with. They will tell you point blank if you are not cutting it, or you're out of line, or you're off track, or they're concerned. And so when you go to somebody with a safe zone feedback, I encourage you to do it outside of work hours. Explain to them that you're working on a project related to self-improvement, and then say to them this question: if you were my supervisor, what would you say I need to improve upon? And it has to be somebody who knows your work, right? Don't go with the easy answer, like, somebody who is on the same team with you, or it could be, right? But don't go with the easy, softball question of something that you just aced out of the park. So if you just complete a project and everybody was like thrilled and chilled with you, you don't want to use this. You want to know where, and maybe you ask them the tough question, like, am I tough to work with? Am I hard to work with? And why would you say that I'm difficult to work with? Or how am I at communicating with people? Is there, what area can I work on better? They might say your tone, they might say, your tool that you're using. Don't count on chat box conversation to be answering the question. You need follow-up and clarification. They may tell you lots of things, but they're going to tell you the truth. And I think it's important to get that kind of feedback from our colleagues that work with us, that we trust. Because not all people are trustworthy. You don't want to go to someone that you don't work with on a regular basis, that you don't know their motive for responding. We're going to run into humans who feel better when they tear someone else down. They're just out there. And you want to avoid that. You want something useful that you can take this approach to figure out what the problem is and what you can do to see if you are the problem. Got it? And I always love this. When it comes to quality and work relationships, especially when it comes to delivery of product or consistency, which is so key. People are judging us by our actions. But we, up in our head, we're thinking about our intentions, right? So I'm guilty of this like crazy. I have 36 grandnieces and grandnephews. That's grandnephews, grandnieces. And in my head, I'm always like, oh, I should put a card in the mail to them for St. Patrick's Day or Valentine's Day or Christmas or something cute for their birthday. And I'm thinking about that. So that's my intention, but I never do. And then so they're like, yeah, well, Aunt Kemetia doesn't give a rat's about me because she never reaches out to me. So you see the difference? So how that applies at work is if you say to someone, yeah, I can set that up for you, and I can set it up by a certain date, then you know you have to do that because they're counting on you. And if you're consistently not delivering that product when you say you will, when you said you would, in a way that they need it, then they're judging you by your actions. So here comes the fun part. How are we going to rebuild that trust and respect? How are we going to rebuild that trust and respect with our colleagues? Once you realize you have that aha moment, you're like, I might be part of the problem. Might be. Not definitely, might be. So, first and foremost, this whole exercise is not to focus on the things that you do wrong, the things that you don't like about work. The point of the exercise is to look at areas where we have conflict, sort out the emotion from the issue, and then figure out what our part of that problem is. Is it both sides? It's always two to tango. So what part of the problem can we fix? What part of some problems can't be fixed, right? If you really don't respect your supervisor, you don't like the work. When we don't like the work, what happens is it tends to be sloppy. It tends to not be quality work when we really don't enjoy what we're doing. And that could backfire quickly on any human. So don't think about it as I have to look for everything that I need to fix right now. I'm just encouraging to think about if you are having a lot of office conflict, if you're having a lot of conflict with your colleagues or your supervisor, to take a step back and think about what is the problem? What are the emotions that are coming with those? What is it related to in terms of delivery and skills for my work? And then to look at those 3 ways we talked about to figure out what your role is. Evaluate, annual review your annual review. Track the issue in some sort of, online spreadsheet or you can do it on the paper, the little chart that I gave you guys, whatever works for you. Don't have to use names because you can just keep it like initials or come up with some code word, but something that you know how to track that for 15 days because you're going to see a pattern. 15 work days, don't count the weekends. 15 work days. Although most of us are online at some point over the weekend. 15 work days, you're going to see where that issue is, right? You're going to know what's going on. And then get that honest feedback. So you get to the point and you start to see all of these things and you suddenly realize, dang, I am part of this problem. I am a big part of this problem. Nobody wants to come to me because of whatever you figure out the problem is. Now you come to the first part of rebuilding that trust and respect, and that is a commitment, a soul commitment for improvement. That you really truly want to address this issue, you want to improve upon it, and you want it to become a new regular, a new standard for you. You're going to make a personal commitment to rebuilding the trust and respect, and you're going to find somebody to help you be accountable for it. Maybe that same safe zone person or someone outside your family that you trust that you could talk about it with. Some people have such great methods of communication with their supervisor. They'll actually have this conversation with them. They have such a good rapport, but I wouldn't necessarily count on that. So the next piece here that we're looking at is humility. Now, humility is not the same as humiliation. Humility is not the same as humiliation. And so let me just do this for a second. So humility is not the same as humiliation. And humility requires the acknowledgement that maybe we don't have all the answers. That maybe our approach might not be the best. It doesn't mean that you have to be shredded in front of your whole team. It doesn't mean that. It means you have an opportunity to do the hard work, to recognize that you need to do the hard work. That's as simple as that. And share this very quickly, this story with you guys before I go back to the next 2 points. I had a job. I still have a job. I worked for a large healthcare system. I supported 3 teams, one of them being the emergency department, and 2 other VPs. So I sat in a suite with 2 other EAs, myself, and then the 5 VPs that were in that suite with us in the hospital system. And it was holiday season, so the usual, right? We get ready for holiday season. We have luncheons. We have plans with our teams. In this particular time frame, my emergency department crew was the biggest team that I supported. We were planning a big holiday luncheon down at one of the downtown restaurants. So I sorted out the other 2 VPs. They were going to do their own thing with their team, but the ER folks needed me to help them with theirs. Set up all the stuff for this restaurant downtown and, timing and how it would all, went back and forth with my supervisor on, is this good? Does this work for you? Is this the budget? Are we good? Everything was fine. He was happy with how everything was set up to go off. And we approached the time of the holiday function, and it turned out on the calendar that our team meeting, like his department, to meet with his department heads, like his leads, that was going to be prior to our holiday luncheon. So, kind of that hard work piece, and then like everybody just relax and enjoy each other's company, enjoy the luncheon. I did all the things we do for holiday party, decorations and little small gifts for our team, the team leads, picked, I thought was a great menu, and, just like, not all appetizers, but, small food so that people could get there and just have what they wanted or whatever. And we actually had a section of the restaurant, wasn't a big restaurant, so we just had like a little section off to the side, but there were plenty of other tables around us. It was upstairs away from the rest of the luncheon people. And that day came, like I said, I had the other 2 VPs sorted, and I, at this point, it was a lot of, we didn't use text. We used pagers, and we used voicemail, because the hospital system uses code systems a lot for letting people know what's going on in the hospital, whether it is a trauma 1 flight coming in, whether it is a new baby being born, whether there is a problem in the hospital system that requires a police officer, whether it is a system where it is somebody is having a heart attack or a serious health crisis and they need a certain team to come and assist them. So we predominantly communicated by voicemail at this time. And so my boss had gone off to the meeting. I didn't have to take minutes in it because he knew I was going to go set up the party. And I told him I'm off to the luncheon. I know you guys are headed into the meeting. I'll see you there. Go down to the restaurant, start setting things up. And I'm very excited about this because I've done a lot of planning. I've put a lot of effort into it. I'm very excited because the team works hard and there's a hard. They do hard work, emergency department folks. It's constant crisis with like very few lulls and then all of a sudden crisis. And we did have a trauma one center, so we also had the flight helicopter crew was part of our team. And flight surgeons, all those folks were part of our team. So the meeting goes on. And I get there, and I'm not looking at time and things, and the manager comes over to me after I have everything all set up, and he said, hey, I think this was like noonish. The meeting, my team was in their meeting at 11:30. I didn't think they would be past 12:30 or 11, like 11 to 12, and then it was like 12:30. And needless to say, it had been a while, and the manager came over to me to talk to me. He's like, hey, do you want something to eat? You hungry? And I'm like, yeah, no, they'll be here soon. Well, he said, well, should I go ahead and set up the food? And I was like, sure, please, that'd be great. And the food comes, and I text I call my boss on his cell phone, get his voicemail, and said, hey, FYI, I'm going to go ahead and have them start the food so that when you guys get out and get here, it'll be ready and you'll probably be hungry. Now, I didn't ask him that. I didn't think I needed to. And I just said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I made some, assumptions there. Some time had passed and still no one. And the food comes out. Now, I've been sitting there for an hour now, right? And I'm looking around. People are coming in. They're having their team, other companies are having their luncheons. The food is sitting on our table, starting to get cold. And I'm starting to feel very self-conscious about this matter. And I get nervous and anxious. And I call my supervisor again. And I said, hey, are you guys coming? Is this canceled? Is there something going on I don't know about? Can you give me a call? This must have been a good, maybe an hour after we were supposed to start this function. And I thought, I should call the hospital, call one of my colleagues and see if there's some sort of code going down that would explain why I haven't heard from anybody on the team. Because if they called a code that required my team, they're all going to break their meeting, they're not going to respond to me, which they shouldn't. They go to this, so I call my colleague and I say, hey, Pamela, yeah, so have you seen them? Because we're supposed to be down here and having a holiday lunch and nobody's here and I wasn't sure what was going on. Is there a code? Do they call a trauma? And she said, no, nothing's going on. It's pretty quiet. Huh. Okay, well, if you see him, will you tell him to give me a call? She's like, sure. Well, I don't know. It felt like forever. It probably wasn't, but I got hot, right? I was so frustrated. I didn't hear anything from my supervisor. It was zippy. And I'm sitting there with all this food getting cold. People are coming and going. Now it's past lunchtime and people have left the restaurant. The manager is looking at me like, really, lady? Or so I thought. Caveat. And he comes up to me and he goes, well, what would you like to do? Would you like me to package this up? And In that moment of immaturity, self-confess, I say to the guy, they're not coming. I don't know what the hell happened. They're not coming. Just here's the card. Let me pay for it. And I'm sorry for all the trouble. Go ahead. If you want to give the food to the staff, go right ahead. I'm out. And I leave. I pay the bill and I leave the restaurant without telling my supervisor what I'm doing. And don't you know, as soon as I got back to my table, the supervisor calls and says, where are you? Where's the food? What's going on? And I break down in tears. And I say to myself, oh my God, I am so fired. And I cry. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. Call me back when you get it together. My other VP is standing there when this all goes down. And he says, Foley, what happened? And so I tell him. He shakes his head. He says, Foley, you made the mistake of caring. And his point wasn't that I made the mistake of caring like I shouldn't care, but that I had put my whole heart and soul into a job. And what really came out of this humiliation was that I had put the importance of this particular event and all my work, it was all about me, into this party. When in reality, who cares what time they show up? Nobody was paying attention to what I was doing at the restaurant. It wasn't about me. They were in the midst of some serious budget conversations, and it was complicated. He owes me nothing to call me and tell me what's going on. It's my job to just kind of hang and be like, okay, well, roll with it. But I wasn't mature enough to do that. And so that was humiliation. And he called me back and he said, are you ready? Just come on down here. And I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, just get it together. Come down here and have lunch with us. Late lunch, I go down. I apologize to the whole team. I say to my boss, I'm so sorry. And he says, look, we're not going to talk about this today. We'll talk about it another time. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And we did. And we hashed it out. And it was good. And I ate humble pie. But I was humiliated by the spectacle I made of myself. But the humility was being able to say I was completely wrong in how I handled this. See where I'm going with this story? So I was wrong on that side of the street. Yes, there were things that weren't going right, but the way I handled it was completely wrong. And so what it taught me was not to make everything all about me, 2, to ask more questions, and 3, don't take myself so seriously. It's do your job, do it well, and then let the rest go. Try to let that go. So the last 2 points real quick before we wrap up today. In order to rebuild that trust and respect is consistency. When you look at your list of things you need to work on, if it's a list or if it's just one, consistency is key. Showing up on time, the quality of product being consistent, all of those things that consistent builds that trust. And the last bullet is what is going to build that respect. Make immediate corrections. So if you catch yourself in a situation where you start to point the blame at someone else, or you are ready to lose your temper or just do shoddy work to get it off your desk, correct it, make immediate corrections. Catch yourself, tell someone, tell your super, tell your colleague, hey, I'm sorry I was out of line. I apologize. Let me fix this right now. Or maybe it is just something as simple as showing up on time or admitting when you need help. Back to the humility issue. So if you are having trouble with a setup on a Teams channel or something and you can't get it together, make immediate corrections, get somebody to help you with, build that list of people who could help you when you're in these situations, and ask for that help. But make immediate corrections. I'm sorry, I need to work on this so that it's more smooth when we log on. You don't have to say I'm sorry. You can even acknowledge it afterwards. Just acknowledge. Well, that didn't go exactly as smoothly as I planned. I guess I need to work on that. It's not that hard. And yes, so this is where I live. Not in the lighthouse, but York, Maine is where I live. And Neville Lighthouse is one of the most famous lighthouses in the whole world. And it has its own webcam. So it's been a pleasure to share with you this session on Are You the Office Jerk? This is my website and how you can find me. And last but not least, get ready for this year's April Desk Escape, starting April 1st, 2021. And you can learn more about it at the Executive Secretary Magazine article, Lessons from April Desk Escape Challenge. And it's been awesome. So thanks.